After weeks of uncertainty for educators around the country, the Department of Education on Friday said it would release billions of dollars in withheld grants for schools. This was done through a review by the Office of Management and Budget. That money, totaling between $5 and nearly $7 billion, will support, among other things, programs for migrant students, adult education, teacher training, and academic enrichment. That money is being dispersed to states starting this week. On CNN's Face the Nation on Sunday, the director of the Office of Management and Budget touched on the funding release and tried to explain the reason for this nearly 4-week delay.
It took us longer because many of those programs we have fundamental concerns with because they go to left-wing advocacy groups, and it took us a long time to make sure that they were consistent with presidential EOs. We were able to release those in time for the school year, even though they're multi-year funds. And so each funding program is different.
While the OMB director pointed to what he called fundamental concerns, critics say this was less about oversight and just more about politics. David Schaefer joins us now from the Georgia Budget and Policy Institute. Welcome to the show.
Good morning.
How do you interpret that justification by the OMB director on that delay?
Well, what we would say is that K through 12 public school students in Georgia need consistent and predictable funding. The districts depend upon that funding to budget accordingly, and we're pleased that the funds have been released. At the same time, we want to make sure that in the future, school districts are able to predict the funding that is going to come in and that the funds that have been allocated are coming in on time.
You know, predictable and consistent. Here we are on the verge of back to school. I've got one friend in APS teacher going back into the building today. So here we are, things are going to get started. How will this delay, do you think, impact that back to school?
Hopefully impacts will be minimal. It's a little bit difficult to say how everything fits together on the back end. You know, school districts do great work with our students, and they no doubt have been keeping an eye on the news and monitoring what's been going on with those funds. I don't have on the ground knowledge exactly what will play out, but certainly delays like this do not help them get everything streamlined and ready to meet students on the first day of school.
Yeah, already challenging enough to get ready for the new year without a little bit of a roller coaster. And we talked about between $5 and $7 billion. That's a major impact. Representative Lucy McBath, representing Georgia's 6th District, was recently here on The Take. She called for the release of this money, saying students and teachers, in her opinion, were pawns in politics. Listen really quickly to what she had to say.
You know, those funds are used for training our teachers, before school, after school programs. There's like 5 grant programs now, statewide, but also nationwide, that this money is supposed to be appropriated for. And they knew that this July 1st deadline was something that they were should have adhered to, and they didn't.
From where you're sitting, do you feel like political pressure from different representatives and the public weighing in move the needle here at all?
I'm not able to speculate on what moves and motivates decision makers in Washington, D.C. Certainly from our experience, it is important to reach out to our elected officials, and they in turn to reach out to the executive branch as needed to get things moving when there is a funding delay. Whether that was exactly the case in this moment, I'm not sure, but universally speaking, pressure does help when things need to get moving, especially when K through 12 funding and students are at stake.
How did this funding delay threaten Georgia's maybe most vulnerable students, especially English learners, rural school districts? Can you talk us through sort of that on-the-ground impact?
Sure. As far as on-the-ground impact, again, having predictable, consistent funding is extremely important for school districts to be able to plan, especially as the first day of school approaches and is coming next week for many of our districts. In general, we're talking about, in the migrant education program, about 5,000 Georgia students were served in 2022 and 2023. And then when we're talking about English learner services, we're talking about 65,000 Georgia students that were served in fiscal year 2024. So all told, you're talking about 70,000 approximate students who are receiving those services and the professionals who deliver those services. So how exactly that looks in every school district on the ground, but this is a lot of students who do receive those services,
Sure.
and they do benefit from them.
Well, we really appreciate your insight. Thanks so much for the time.